Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Radha, Krishna Chandra Radha, Krishna Chandra Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashtottar Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Samstapakacharya Savior of the whole world Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 9, The Dynasty of Amshuman. Text number 18. Tataha Sudasaha Tatputra Tatasudasas Tatputra Tatasudasas Tatputra Damayanti Patir Nripaha Damayanti Patir Nripaha Damayanti Patir Nripaha Ahur Mitrasaham Yam Vai Ahur Mitrasaham Yam Vai Ahur Mitrasaham Yam Vai Kalmashangrim Kalmashangrim Uta Kvachet कल्माषाङ्घ्रिम् उत क्वचेत् कल्माषाङ्घ्रिम् उत क्वचेत् वसिष्ठ शापाद् रक्षो अभूत् वसिष्ठ शापाद् रक्षोऽभूत् वसिष्ठ शापाद् रक्षोऽभूत् अनपत्यः स्वकर्मणा अनपत्यस्वकर्मणा अनपत्यस्वकर्मणा ततः सुदासस्तत्पुत्रो दमयन्ती पतिर्नृपः आहुर्मित्रसहम्यं वै कल्माषाङ्घ्रिम् उत क्वचेत् वसिष्ठशापाद् रक्षोऽभूत् अनपत्यस्वकर्मणा ततः सुदासस्तत्पुत्रो ततः from Sarvakama Sudasa was born. Tatputraha, the son of Sudasa. Damayanti Patihi, the husband of Damayanti. Nripaha, he became king. Ahuhu, it is said, Mitrasaham, Mitrasaha, Yamvai, also, Kalmashangrim, by Kalmashapada, Uta, known, Kvachet, sometimes, Vasishtashapat, being cursed by Vasishtha, Rakshaha, a man-eater, Abhut, became, Anapatyaha, without any son, Swakarmana, by his own sinful act. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sarvakama had a son named Sudasa, whose son, known as Saudasa, was the husband of Damayanti. Saudasa is sometimes known as Mitrasaha or Kalmashapada. Because of his own misdeed, Mitrasaha was sonless and was cursed by Vasishtha to become a man-eater, Rakshasa. Please repeat this translation. Sarvakama had a son named Sudasa, whose son known as Saudasa was the husband of Damayanti. Saudasa is sometimes known as Mitrasaha or Kalmashapada. Because of his own misdeed, Mitrasaha was sonless and was cursed by Vasishta to become a man-eater, Rakshasa. Next few verses I'll read by myself. Text 19. Shri Rajo Vacha Kim Nimitto Guru Shapaha Saudasasya Mahatmanaha Etadveditum Ichchamaha Katyatam Naraho Yadi. Translation. King Parikshit said, O Shukadev Goswami, why did Vasishta, the spiritual master of Saudasa, curse that great soul? I wish to know of this. If it is not a confidential matter, please describe it to me. Text 20 and 21. Shri Shuka Vacha Saudaso Mrigayam Kinchit Charan Raksho Jaghanaha Mumocha Bhrataram Sotha Gata Pratichikirshaya Sanchintayan Agham Rajnyaha Sudarupa Dharo Grihe Gurave Bhoktu Kamaya Paktva Ninye Naramisham. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami said, once Saudasa went to live in the forest when he killed a man-eater, a Rakshasa, but forgave and released the man-eater's brother. That brother, however, decided to take revenge. Thinking to harm the king, he became the cook at the king's house. One day, the king's spiritual master, Vasishta Muni, was invited for dinner, and the Rakshasa cook served him human flesh. Horrible things happen. Material life is very, very risky. I'll read once again this translation. Once Saudasa went to live in the forest where he killed a man-eater, a Rakshasa, but forgave and released the man-eater's brother. That brother, however, decided to take revenge. That man-eater's brother decided to take revenge against Saudasa. Thinking to harm the king, that is Saudasa, he became the cook at the king's house. He became the cook at the king's house, Saudasa's house. One day, the king's spiritual master Vasishta Muni was invited for dinner, and the Rakshasa cook served him human flesh. That's why flesh eating is completely forbidden. Certain types of flesh under certain circumstances may be eaten, but overall, flesh eating is completely to be avoided. Because primarily, flesh itself is in the mode of ignorance, and flesh means it involves animal killing. So in this case, it involved killing a human being, human flesh, not just animal flesh. Text 22. Parivekshamanam Bhagavan Vilokya Bhakshyam Anjasa Rajanam Ashapat Kruddho Raksho Hyevam Bhavishyasi. Translation. While examining the food given to him, Vasishta Muni, by his mystic power, could understand that it was unfit to eat, being the flesh of a human being. He was very angry at this and immediately cursed Saudasa to become a man-eater. Instead of being served some proper flesh which is suitable for eating, he was served human flesh. So he became angry. He could understand by his mystic power This Vasishtha Muni, he has got mystic power to figure out that this flesh is not suitable. But he is not refraining from eating flesh. You see, we are all saved because we got a regulative principle. Don't eat any kind of flesh, any kind of non-vegetarian item. Don't eat. Even if it is suitable according to Shastra, even if it is result of a proper sacrifice, even if it is only a goat flesh, don't eat any flesh. So we are saved from so... Imagine, this is Vasishtha Muni. He is such a advanced person in knowledge, in Brahmanical qualities, and he has got mystic power to understand what kind of flesh is being served, that it is not suitable. And then he becomes angry for no mistake of this king. The king was cheated by his cook. So, overall we can understand that material life is very complicated. This material world. To live a life free from sin is impossible except for one who engages in devotional service. There are a lot of points. Anyway, I will, before I complete reading, I should not get into discussion. So let me complete reading some portion. Text 23 and 24. So what has happened? Vasishtha Muni has cursed Saudasa to become a man-eater, to become a Rakshasa. Because Vasishtha Muni was wrongly fed, wrongly served, not fed, wrongly served human flesh. That is because Saudasa's cook, who wanted to take revenge, because Saudasa killed this cook's brother, who was a Rakshasa. So, the king did his duty to save people from being devoured by this Rakshasa. He relieved that Rakshasa of that Rakshasa body. But then the brother became angry. Why did you kill my brother? See the attachment. He is not seeing that my brother was relieved from having to live like a Rakshasa and incur so much of sinful reactions. He is not seeing that way. You see? So, in order to take revenge, he plotted. And Saudasa, without realizing that this cook is actually a brother of somebody I killed as my duty, he doesn't know all that. So he invited a spiritual master, and the spiritual master was served this human flesh. He became implicated in displeasing the spiritual master. Vasishtha Muni became angry. He cursed him. You become a man-eater. Then the next two verses, 23 and 24. Rakshakritam tad viditva chakre dvadasha varshikam sopyap so api aponjalim adaya gurum shaptum samudyataha varito madayantyapo rushati padayor jahau dishakham avanim sarvam pashyan jivamayam nripaha. Translation of these two verses, 23 and 24. When Vasishtha understood that the human flesh had been served by the Rakshasa, not by the king, he undertook 12 years of austerity to cleanse himself for having cursed the faultless king. Look at this. He has cursed a faultless king. Then he is going to get reaction. So in order to free himself from that reaction, he undertook 12 years of austerity to cleanse himself of that sinful act. Meanwhile, King Saudasa took water and chanted the Shapa mantra, preparing to curse Vasishtha. But his wife, Madayanti, forbade him to do so. So now King Saudasa was preparing to curse Vasishtha because he was faultless. So he wanted to use his whatever austerity, tapashakti, to curse Vasishtha. But Vasishtha's wife, no, it is not Vasishtha's wife, Saudasa's wife, who is Madayanti. Nakshakrutam. Okay, Madayanti is Saudasa's wife. King Saudasa took water and chanted the Shapa mantra, preparing to curse Vasishtha. But Saudasa's wife, Madayanti, forbade him to do so. Then the king saw that the 10 directions, the sky and the surface of the globe, were full of living entities everywhere. So Saudasa's wife has forbidden him to curse Vasishtha in return. In text 25, Rakshasam bhavam apannaha pade kalmashatam gataha vyavaya kale dadrishe vanauko dampati dvijau. Translation: Saudasa thus acquired the propensity of a man-eater and received on his leg a black spot, for which he was known as Kalmashapada. See, Saudasa has got so many names. He was known as Saudasa was also known as Mitrasaha or Kalmashapada. So Kalmashapada, he got the name because on his leg there was a black spot. Once King Kalmashapada saw a Brahmana couple engaged in sexual intercourse in the forest. Text 26 and 27. Shudharto jagrihe vipram tatpatni aha kritarthavat na bhavan rakshasa sakshad ikshvakunam maharathaha Madayantya patirvira nadharmam kartumarhasi dehi me apatya kamaya akritartham patim dvijam. Translation of these two verses, 26 and 27. Being influenced by the propensity of a Rakshasa and being very hungry, King Saudasa seized the Brahmana. Then the poor woman, the Brahmana's wife, said to the king, O hero, you are not actually a man-eater, rather you are among the descendants of Maharaj Ikshvaku. Indeed, you are a great fighter, the husband of Madayanti. You should not act irreligiously in this way. I desire to have a son. Please therefore return my husband who has not yet impregnated me. the Brahmana couple were engaged in sexual intercourse for the sake of having a child. And this Saudasa, being hungry and having the propensity of man-eater, he sees that Brahmana to kill and eat him, eat that flesh, human flesh. But the Brahmana's wife, she was very, very chaste woman, so she could make out that this man-eater is not an ordinary person. He is actually a great king, descendant of Maharaj Ikshvaku. And she even said, "You are a great fighter, the husband of Madayanti. You should not act irreligiously in this way, because I desire to have a son. So return my husband who has not yet impregnated me." Text 28. Dehoyam manusho rajan purushasya khilarthadaha purushasya akhila arthadaha tasmadasya vadho veera sarvarthavadha uchyate. Translation: O king, O hero, the wife of the Brahmana is addressing this Saudasa, who has got the propensity of being a man-eater, who has seized the chaste Brahmana wife's husband, the Brahmana. O king, O hero, this human body is meant for universal benefits. If you kill this body untimely, you will kill all the benefits of human life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Hari Hari Vipale Janama Goainu, Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Na Bhajiya, Janiya Shuniya Vishakhainu. The body of a human being is extremely valuable, because in this body one can understand the instructions of Krishna and attain the ultimate destination of the living entity. The living entity is within the material world to fulfill the mission of going back home, back to Godhead. In the material world, one hankers for happiness, but because one does not know the ultimate destination, one changes bodies one after another. However, if one gets the opportunity to possess a human form of body, in this body he can fulfill the four principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. And if one is properly regulated, he makes further progress after liberation to engage in the service of Radha and Krishna. This is the success of life, to stop the process of repeated birth and death and go back home, back to Godhead, Mamiti, to be engaged in the service of Radha and Krishna. Therefore, taking a human body is meant for completing one's progress in life. Throughout human society, killing of a human being is taken very seriously. Hundreds and thousands of animals are killed in slaughterhouses and no one cares for them, about them. But the killing of even one human being is taken very seriously. Why? Because the human form of body is extremely important in executing the mission of life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this particular 28th verse, Prabhupada has written a purport, but the previous verses for which there is no purport, but the verses themselves, if you understand the essence of what is being described here, See, that is the beauty of the Bhagavatam. Here, the dynasty of this great king Amshuman is being described. But what is there for us to learn from this description of this dynasty? That material life, even if one is following the rules and regulations for avoiding sinful activities, for living a pious life, even then there is every possibility that by mistake, accidentally, in spite of knowing that something is sinful, one is somehow implicated in sinful activities. Now this king Saudasa, son of Sudasa, Saudasa, he was doing his duty as a king. He happened to kill a man-eater because that man-eater will simply, simply for the sake of his food, he is going to kill human beings because he's got a propensity to eat human flesh also. Not that he can only survive by eating human flesh. He can eat some animal flesh. No, he will not restrain himself in eating only animal flesh. So he will even devour a human being and eat that flesh when he is hungry. So this Saudasa, he actually did his duty as a king, but that enraged that Rakshasa man-eater's brother. The brother thought, oh, this king has actually killed my brother. So he wanted to take revenge. And then he secretly went and became cook in the house of that Saudasa. And then Saudasa invited his guru, Vasishta Muni, for dinner one day. And then this Rakshasa cook, disguised as a human only, but he is a Rakshasa. So he served this Vasishta Muni human flesh. Vasishta Muni, by his mystic power, could understand this is unfit for eating, and he was angry. Why are you serving me human flesh? So he cursed Saudasa immediately out of anger, without realizing or thinking whether it is Saudasa's mistake or some other thing has happened. Some other mistake has happened. Anyway, he has not eaten. And he is immediately becoming angry. You are insulting me by serving me human flesh. He is not considering whether, he is not using his mystic power to figure out whether this Saudasa is at fault or somebody else is at fault. He is using mystic power to find out, oh, this is not human, this is not fit for eating. See, even if somebody has mystic power, to properly utilize that mystic power is not possible unless one has controlled his senses, one is properly engaged in spiritual life. That's why scriptures declare, ultimately, for a civilized human being, for somebody aiming at self-realization, sense control is absolutely essential. And even if somebody attempts to control the senses by any means other than bhakti, they will not be successful. Time and again in the Bhagavatam, this is explained. This is revealed in the history of so many personalities. Vasishta Muni For the moment he became very angry, momentarily became very angry. Anger is like that. Unless controlled, the first verse of the Upadeshamrita, Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam. This krodha cannot be completely eliminated. When you get a human body, krodha cannot be eliminated, but krodha has to be purified. So Narottam Das Thakur says, to purify your propensity to become angry, you have to strictly use anger or employ anger against somebody who blasphemes Krishna or who blasphemes a Vaishnava. Hanuman did that. Hanuman engages propensity to become angry against the kingdom of Ravana. When Ravana insulted Lord Rama. When Ravana insulted Lord Rama. So he burnt, it is said, half of Lanka. Now, Hanuman burning Lanka, how is it justified? Because Ravana insulted Rama. Actually, it is the mercy of a pure devotee that those who are living a life of eat, drink and be merry are delivered simply because they are killed by a pure devotee. They are killed by a pure devotee. Krishna engaged the Pandavas in killing so many people on the Kaurava side. Correct? But that is not a bad thing, because these 5 Pandavas are pure devotees. So anybody killed by Bhima or Yudhishthira or Arjuna, expert fighters, they are killing so many Kshatriyas. So all those Kshatriyas are purified, delivered from sinful reactions, completely purified, because they are killed by a pure devotee. So Hanuman burning half of Lanka is not at all wrong or bad. So, coming back to the point, Narottam Das Thakur says, employ anger against those who blaspheme Krishna or those who blaspheme Vaishnavas. Because anger cannot be completely nullified. Anger cannot be completely nullified. So, this Vasishtha Muni, because he was not a devotee, he was momentarily overtaken by anger against Saudasa and wrongly thought Saudasa as the cause for that flesh to be, human flesh to be served to him. So he cursed the faultless king to become a man-eater. And then later on, this Vasishtha understood that human flesh had been served by the Rakshasa, not by Vasishtha. And he undertook 12 years of austerity to cleanse himself for having cursed the faultless king. See, even he has got the method of Prayaschitta also. For his mistake, he has got the Prayaschitta. But the defect of Prayaschitta is that even though it can free one from the particular sinful reaction, it doesn't purify the heart of the tendency to commit sinful activities. That is possible only by bhakti. This is explained in the beginning of the 6th canto by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. So, tendency for sinful activities cannot be cannot be cleansed away by jnana, by tapasya, by dana, by tyaga, by yajna. None of these methods are competent to cleanse this propensity to commit sin. None of these methods. It is only by pure devotional service that the heart becomes completely cleansed, not only of sinful reactions of the past, but also of the tendency to commit sin. So therefore, a devotee who is engaged in pure devotional service is always free from sin. Always free from sin. Simply because he is engaged in pure devotional service. Therefore, Krishna declares about one engaged in pure devotional service. Apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadureva samantavyaha. My devotee, who is always engaged in devotional service, pure devotional service, even if he commits the most abominable sinful act, he is pure. He is pure. So, a devotee will never commit any sin, one engaged in pure devotional service. But accidentally, somehow, very, very, very rare case, somehow, somebody does a sinful activity, then he is not touched by any sinful reaction because of his being engaged always in pure devotional service. So the reactions cannot touch him. So Vasishta was having the knowledge of doing this prayaschitta. So he performed prayaschitta and he became free from that sinful reaction. Meantime, Saudasa, he took some water because he had also some power. As a Rajarshi, he has also got some power to curse. So he thought, let me curse Vasishta because he has wrongly cursed me. But his wife, Saudasa's wife, forbade him to do so. See, this wife of Saudasa is also a chaste lady. She has got better understanding that you are misusing your power. You are misusing your power by cursing a sage, a saintly person. You are misusing your power. So he was forbidden. But he had developed that propensity of a man-eater because of the curse of Vasishta. So he immediately desired to eat some flesh, and particularly they have taste for eating human flesh. So he went round seeing, whom can I devour? And he saw one Brahmana couple. And immediately he went and seized that Brahmana and wanted to kill and eat him. And this Brahmana's wife, she could make out that this personality who is come to devour my husband is not an ordinary Rakshasa. He is actually a great king. He is a Rajarshi. And he is a descendant of the Maharaj Ikshvaku. So therefore, she pleaded to him that don't kill my husband because I want to have a son through him. And she says, Dehoyam Manusho Rajan. This human form of body is meant for universal benefits. Purushasya Akhila Arthadaha. Universal benefits. If you kill this body untimely, you will kill all the benefits of human life. That soul in the human body is losing the benefit of having got the human form of life. So what is that benefit of human form of life? Prabhupada explains in the purport quoting Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Hari Hari Vifale Janama Goainu Manushya Janma Paya. I got a human form of a body, but I have not engaged in Radha Krishna Bhajana. Radha Krishna na bhajiya. I am not engaged in devotional service, pure devotional service. Janiya Shuniya Vishakhaino. This is like knowingly drinking poison. This is a great blunder. Not engaging in pure devotional service. So Prabhupada explains that the human form of body is extremely valuable because in this body one can understand the instructions of Krishna and attain the ultimate destination of the living being, that is to go back home, back to God. So the living entity is within this material world to fulfill the mission of going back home, back to God. The only purpose for which Krishna creates this material world is to give a chance to the living entity to realize that I don't belong to this place, I belong to the spiritual world. And by practicing pure devotional service, I can return to the spiritual world where I belong. So this opportunity is given by Krishna, especially when one gets the human form of life. So after getting this human form of body, if one does not understand the real purpose of human life, is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. This is the gradual process of elevation in the human form of life. One should practice religious principles, dharma, that will lead to artha. There will be some economic development automatically, so that one doesn't have to engage in killing some animals or doing something else to get one's basic needs, especially food. A civilized human being who is following religious principles understand what should be eaten and what should not be eaten, and also understands how one can get one's need of some food or whatever, which is even what is permitted. Grains, for example, one should not steal grains. One should earn one's livelihood by the recommended method of performing one's duty. That is called dharma. And artha will lead to kama. One can fulfill one's material desires in a regulated way without incurring sinful reactions. And at the end, one can become liberated. One leads a life according to religious principles. And in that way, one automatically makes gradual progress towards liberation from material bondage. But what will one do after attaining liberation? This is very important. Prabhupada says that and if one is properly regulated, he makes further progress beyond liberation or after liberation to engage in the service of Radha and Krishna. So therefore, Narottam Das Thakur is not describing that gradually you make progress, become liberated from material bondage, and then you take up devotional service. No. Because especially in Kali Yuga, people are less intelligent, they don't have sufficient intelligence, they don't have sufficient proper direction, They are misled by so many manda, sumanda, matayo, manda bhagya. They are unfortunate. They are always disturbed in the mind. So directly he says, Manushya Janma Paya Radha Krishna Bhaj. Engage in worshipping Radha and Krishna. Engage directly in pure devotional service. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also teaches. Directly engage in pure devotional service by taking to chanting Hare Krishna. But even if one follows the gradual process, the description in the scriptures is, after liberation one should engage in pure devotional service. Where is it told in the Bhagavad Gita? Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. Brahmabhuta is the stage of liberation, freed from material bondage, and one comes to the Brahman platform. So Krishna describes the gradual process also. By engaging in one's prescribed duty, but through that performance of duty, one should worship the Supreme Lord who is all-pervading and who is Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manam. One becomes liberated. What is that verse? What is the first line? Yatha pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tata. While engaging according to one's acquired nature in different duties, one should worship the Lord by the result of one's activities, who is all-pervading and who is the source of all living beings. Yataha pravritti bhutana. One who is the source, that is the Supreme Lord, and who is all-pervading. He is present everywhere. So that is the Brahman understanding of the absolute truth. In this material world, even though there are some immediate causes for some effects, the ultimate cause is Brahman, the absolute truth. So, the first realization of the absolute truth in the gradual process of self-realization is realization of the absolute truth as Brahman. But after Brahman realization, one has to go further. Krishna doesn't stop at that. He says, Brahmabhuta prasannatma. One becomes immediately joyful without separate endeavor for any happiness as soon as one realizes I am Brahman, or realizes the absolute truth as Brahman and I am of the same nature. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. No more hankering, no more lamentation, no more material existence. Then samasarveshu bhuteshu, sees every living being as spirit soul. I am spirit soul. The absolute truth is spiritual in nature. All the living beings are also of the same spiritual nature, are individual spirit souls, are spirit souls. So, then Krishna says, Mad bhaktim labhate param. Then one is fit for engaging in pure devotional service. Para bhakti. Same thing is told in the Bhagavatam. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Because bhakti in this material world is sometimes mixed with contamination of karma and jnana. But the real bhakti, which is ultimately beneficial for ultimate liberation, for going back to Godhead, is pure devotional service. Anyabhilashitashu jnana karma dhyana. Or this description, para bhakti. Yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Savai pumsam paro dharmo. And here also, mad bhaktim labate param, pure devotional service. So that pure devotional service is directly taught by Narottam Das Thakur. Manushya janma paya radha krishna na bhajiya janiya shuniya vishakhan. So human life is meant for simply engaging in pure devotional service and going back to God. If one is unable to take to pure devotional service directly, then one is advised to engage in gradual elevation to the spiritual platform through other processes of karma, jnana, hatha yoga, etc. Karma yoga, jnana yoga. But fortunate souls, when they come in contact with the pure devotee, Prabhupada, then they can directly take to, because Prabhupada gives us the faith, the shraddha. There is one song written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Gurudev kripa bindu diya koroy dase trunapeka atihina. So give me that drop of mercy, even a little mercy pure devotee bestows upon some living being. Then immediately that shraddha for accepting pure devotional service is immediately generated in the heart. The shraddha is awakened. Otherwise, other unfortunate people, they don't have the faith, they're faithless. Generally, people are faithless in this material world because they are determined to enjoy materially. So they cannot take up pure devotional service. So the pure devotee and Krishna, when Krishna incarnates, he blesses the souls with that shraddha by which they can take to devotional service. Similarly, Prabhupada and all the acharyas, they come to this world to bestow this shraddha on the conditioned souls by which they can take up pure devotional service. And then they guide them also how to execute pure devotional service. So, human form of life is meant for this ultimate liberation, and that is the real mission of human life, to engage in pure devotional service and go back, come back to God. Stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.